And much of State of Origin is about drama. Forget the football. It's about everything that happens along with the passing and the kicking and the scoring tries. Our rugby league experts have gone back in time to dig up 30 incidents and issues, sparking furious debate over the years. The full story's right here. And one memory I have, gentlemen, is of those fans at Lang Park hurling the beer cans when Wally got sent off.
Yeah, fair enough too, yep.
That was a cracker. What's yours, Mike? Got a few, I imagine.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you can't go past for the sheer horror of it was Les Boyd putting his elbow into Darryl Broman's jaw, which was just a shocking thing to see. But that beer can incident was one of the few times in world sport where the rules of the game have been changed because of an incident. I mean, Bodyline with Don Bradman, the rules of snooker were changed. But after that, you couldn't have cans in the outer. You have to drink actually in that little enclosure at Lang Park. Yeah. Huge change to the game of rugby league.
Crash, you have a few memories?
Oh, it's funny, they're not always the big moments, but I remember sitting in the grandstand once when Wayne Bennett was very much on trial as an Origin coach, and he just had to win this game at Lang Park. And it was right near the final hooter, and New South Wales kicked through and scored just before the buzzer. And there's actually footage of him, and I stopped looking at the field, looked around, and he just went like this. Oh no. And 10 minutes...
Mark McGaw.
Mark McGaw, was it?
Yeah.
And well done. And then as we were leaving the ground, about 40 minutes later, after the press conferences, the Queensland team drove off in a bus, and Bennett walked back to the team hotel. I can still see him walking, as down and disappointed and goddamn shattered as I've ever seen a coach after a loss. And, later he squared up his Origin record and ended up having some great wins. But that was the moment when Wayne Bennett looked as vulnerable as I've ever seen him, Amanda. And it's funny, it's, as I said, it's not always the big triumphs you remember. Sometimes it's those desolate moments which just shatter a man's life.
I'll tell you an interesting story about that one, Crash. The next game, when his head was really on the chopping block, and he got the team around in the hotel beforehand, he said, "Look, fellas, we're really up against it. If we lose tonight, I'm going to be out of a job, and most of you guys aren't going to be back either." And then he left the room, and then the players said, "Well, what are we going to do? What we need is a rallying cry, something to get us up." And that was when Fatty Vorton said, "Well, why don't we yell at Queenslander?" Wow. And that was where it all started after that incident the game before. So that was a real turning point, Crash, in Origin history.
Yeah. It was just, it's funny the profile of the Blues team, Amanda, like when they used to come to Brisbane, and maybe it was because we were sort of kid reporters at the time, but Cliffy Lyons, Brett Kenny, Peter Sterling, like you were in literal awe of them. You know what I mean? Like they were superstars of Australian sport. Maybe we're getting old, but when I see Jamie, I know I'm going to say Jamie Jury, and it's not. It's Jamie Buhrer. But like I honestly wouldn't know him if he walked past here. So that's the different profiles. But it was. But it's just as special as it always was. I also love the country influence when a guy like Rowan Hancock could play representing the Wattles in Millmere and running the meatworks and travelling down, the last country man to go through his career in the bush and do it for Queensland. So they're enchanting stories that are so much a part of the fabric of Origin football.
Do you think we've lost some of that magic?
Oh yeah, little bits. What I loved is when guys had sort of other jobs and sort of could, like Rowan Hancock used to do his job down there and drive down here to train. He wasn't real fit. He admits it. He got through on sheer heart. That was a beautiful, enchanting chapter. But now everyone's pretty much got the same story. Chosen as an 18-year-old, played footy all their careers and their lives, and not a lot else.
Yeah, it's just become very slick and professional, hasn't it? But that's the way of sport, I guess. As you say, Crash, we're getting older, and our memories, we maybe think that things were better, but boy, they were great. You'll never again in our lifetime see anything like Wally leading Queensland onto the field at Lang Park and everyone bowing and cheering. And I remember that great quote from Peter Jackson where he said, you'd be nervous in the dressing room and wondering how you were going to go, and he said, and then you'd Wally would walk in, and you'd see Wally, and it'd be like being lost in the supermarket and seeing your mother.
Yeah.
And you knew everything was going to be okay.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, it was funny, and I still see some of the Wally episodes. Like I remember once he had a bit of a sniffle, and Stevie Ricketts, who was then with the Telegraph, and went around to the hotel room and got the photo of Wally with the cough measure, and it was this magnificently photo that took up the whole back page of the Telegraph. Just a bloke having a sip of cough mixture, but I'm feeling okay. You know what I mean?
That was the one where you could win the tissues, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Wally's old tissues. Yeah. They got 3.5 million entries. No, I made a whole thing up, and it didn't happen.
But he was on the front page of the Courier-Mail. I remember it was something like 6 days in a row because he flew for a holiday to the States and was involved in an earthquake over there. Remember that?
Yeah.
And that the story was something like Wally's safe. 27 fatalities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was.
Well, what about we had a poster, a street poster. Remember in the old office here, and it said Wally bitten by possum.
Oh yeah.
Wombat.
Yeah.
Wally bitten by wombat.
I can still remember Des Houghton. He came up to Paul Malone once and he said, "See you boys missed the big story, eh?" And what's that? And he said, "It's my poster for Sunday." And he just held it up. Possum attacks Wally Lewis. And what had happened was
they were on one of those country camps, and Wally put his hand out of a tent, and a possum had walked across it.
Possum, and Wally's going, "Get away, you scrunchy old bastard." And so Des found out about that. And so, Possum attacks Wally Lewis. And Scobie Malone said to Des, "That's drawing a long bow." And Des said, "Scobie, all I'll ask you is one question.